Welcome to Nite Callers Archives. Before Nite Callers became a vidcast on YouTube and Facebook, it was a live call-in show on Blog Talk Radio. We did things a little differently back then. It was a different time in the Bigfoot world. There were only a few podcasts, and Bigfoot was still taboo to talk about. We didn't have the TV shows, hundreds of Bigfoot groups and conferences, or funny memes that we have now. They were different times, folks. We've had many amazing hosts and knowledgeable guests over the years that helped get the Bigfoot community to where it is now. We hope you enjoy these older shows, as they are a phenomenal source of information and good times. If you hear a guest or host that you would love to see back on the current Nite Callers, please drop a comment. Enjoy the show.
Blog Talk Radio.
My name is Laurie Phillips, and I want to welcome you to Nite Callers. I'm here with my co-host, Tennessee Cherokee, and
Hello,
my daughter,
everybody.
Lauren. Yeah. And Lauren is going to help us with the phones tonight. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Mr. Mike Hall, and we're going to bring him on in just a minute. How are you doing tonight, Tennessee?
Oh, I'm doing fine. We're finally getting some spring weather here.
The same here.
It's still a little cool at night, but the days are warming up in like the mid-70s, so that's been nice.
Well, Lauren went camping last night. I want her to tell us a little bit about that, Lauren.
Yes, it was gorgeous weather. It was a very cool night. You might have needed a light jacket. It was awesome. I finally found a spot that is just perfect for activity. It wasn't last night, but it has potential, and I'm very excited about it. All we saw last night was some possums and beavers that wandered right next to our chairs, basically, like they are just not scared of us at all.
Well, tell everyone what part of Oklahoma you're in right now.
Southwest, and it's,
Oklahoma.
I live in Altus, but it's really flat. There's not a lot of anything. We have to go out of town to get any good stuff, and Hedrick and Snyder, where there's been sightings.
So you're looking for a place with trees, basically, right?
Basically, trees, hills, and rocks, anywhere. And creeks.
And water. And water.
Water. Creeks, yeah.
Creeks around, yeah.
We camped right on a creek bed. Basically, it was right beside it. It was a big creek, and it was secluded. So it was.
Well, tell about your eye shine that you saw last night.
Which eye shine? The one that Ricky saw?
Yes.
My boyfriend is a nature. He's in his element if he's out in the nature, and he knows so much about wildlife. And every day I learn something different. And we're standing there, and we're just, scanning for eye shine just every once in a while, and he says, there's 2 spiders over there. And I'm looking at him. I know spiders have eye shine, but, he's pointing 30 to 50 yards away, and I'm looking at him like, how do you see that? And he's like, you don't believe me? I'm like, no. So we go over there. Sure enough, about 35 yards away, there is 2 tiny spiders, tinier than my pinky toenail. These things are little. And he's like, yeah, I told you. I was just like, oh, man, wow, okay. And he told me all about beavers and how, their teeth are so sharp that they don't really get scared walking through the woods because they can defend anything, fight anything. But I don't know. We saw a possum eye shine, then the possum walked through. And
Well, you're getting practice. You didn't see any eye shine 7 feet taller or more, did you?
No, see, I was trying to tell him, I'm trying to get him into this, and he's doing the eye shine thing, and I was like, well, do you know what you're looking for? And he was like, yeah, I'm doing it right. And I was like, well, if they have a belly button ring, that's the only shine you're going to get because you need to move the light up a little bit. He was shining it at the ground, possum level. He wasn't shining it where he's going to see anything. Pretty funny. But no, we didn't see anything, or he did a loon call, and he got response.
So I'm glad all of you are filtering in now, and we're glad you're here. We have a great guest tonight. His name is Mike Hall. He is a field researcher for Texas Law Research. he and his associates, which are all part of this group, TexLaw, and it's a Texas-Louisiana research group. And they do a lot of research right down here in my neck of the woods or around here. They have found some phenomenal things, and so today we're going to be bringing you some of their recordings, and he's going to be talking to you about other things that he's been involved in. He has been on several documentaries. He's been on Weird Travel Channel, Weird Travels on the Travel Channel, and also he has also
Monster Quest.
He's laughing at me, Tennessee. You're supposed to do this.
He's been on Monster Quest.
Yes, he was on Monster Quest.
Yes, he has.
No, he wasn't on Monster Quest. No, he was not on Monster Quest. He was on Weird Travels. Weird Travels.
He was on Weird Travels, okay.
But not Monster Quest. I got that wrong. All of you that went into the, we're not perfect, obviously. He also was on Todd Partaine's Eyes of the Dark documentary. We've got that coming in the mail. We haven't got it yet, but I can't wait till we get it. He's also the keynote speaker at the Honobi Conference this year in Oklahoma. He's going to be there along with other greats like Jeff Meldrum, David Pilates, and Harvey Pratt, Kathy Strain. His recording is also being hosted on Autumn Williams on the OregonBigfoot.com. So if y'all get a chance to go over there, we'll be putting up the TexLaw website and also information about Honobia this weekend today also. Oh, I want to say, hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm great, guys. I'm just excited to be here. It's really an honor.
Well,
welcome,
we're glad
welcome,
that you are here. We want to start off first by asking you, Mike, how you got started in this. I mean, where did it initially begin 8 years ago?
Well, it actually started a lot further back than that. I guess like anybody else, I was about 10 years old, and I had a sleepover. I lived with my grandparents, and we lived out in the country and here in East Texas. I had like 4 or 5 of my friends from school come over, and we were going to have a sleepover. We didn't have cable television, and certainly didn't have satellite television. We had an antenna, and on a decent night you could get Dallas stations and you could get some Tyler stations, but we begged to stay up late because we had found in the TV guide that there was a movie coming on, and all the description was that small southern town terrorized by monster. We thought, cool, a monster movie, So we sat up, and it was The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Oh, wow.
30 seconds into this thing, when that first scream takes place, man, we were... My grandparents, they have to understand this was an old farmhouse, and there was windows, big, huge windows all the way around the room, and they had already said, don't make a mess, don't, whatever. And we watched this whole thing, and we awoke the next morning to rolling laughter as my grandparents came into the room and found 5 10-year-old boys huddled together in the middle of the room under the sleeping bags with all the window shades pulled shut, all the lights turned on, and a chair under the door. But I was hooked. I started reading everything I could, and being from a small town in East Texas, there was not a lot of literature about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. But I did get lucky that there were 2 books in the local library, in the school library. One was by John Green, and another one was, I think it was Marion T. Place. And I read both of those books, I bet, 50 times each. Just, basically memorizing these books. But the books were the only thing I had. Over the years, of course, I got older, and football and girls took more precedent over Bigfoot. And it wasn't until after I got out of the military and came home and went to college that the advent of the internet came into play, and I started looking and seeing that there were still a lot of reports of these Bigfoot, Sasquatch sightings happening all over East Texas and Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and it just came to the crossroads that I said, either I'm going to jump in the game or stay on the sidelines. I decided to get into it, and it has really just been an amazing time that I've had. I've had the opportunity to be in the field with some really great researchers, learn a lot about field work. But I was already acclimated to the woods. My grandfather drugged me into the woods from the time I could walk, taking me on fishing trips and hunting trips and things of that nature. So being out in the woods was not a...
Did you ever think about it while you were out there? I mean, did it ever cross your mind that anything like that?
After Legend of Boggy Creek and everything, and I had watched that and everything, and then I, there were times that I would sit and think about it, but I never pictured anything being right there with me. I think back on it now and think, wow, the possibility of really some of the places we did go camping and hunting were
right in amongst
these sightings, and I never really, thought about it. And the possibility is that they could have very well been. But I never saw, as a child and as a teenager, I never really saw or heard anything that would lend me to believe that they were. But that's how I actually got started. And it's been just a grand adventure for me, and it continues on. And it's getting better and better as every passing day, it just the last couple of years have been really fruitful and just an incredible experience for me. And I want to give...
How long have you been with these fellas that you're with right now, doing all this research with? How long have you been with them?
Well, really in the last couple of years, full-time, just, with these guys. But I've known Bob and Bruce for several years, at least about 5 years. The same with Lonnie and Scott, and there's some. Scott Kessler and I had some pretty amazing things happen one night down in the Sam Houston National Forest area several years ago. Bruce and Bob and I have had some things transpire and happen, but we've got this little organization, this little group, kind of small. We go when we can, and if someone's not able to make it for the trip, it's okay. Make the next one if you can. We kind of play it by ear, and we talk to each other as far as what our game plan is when we get there to a location. And
what generally is your game plan, if you don't mind me asking? How do you usually go about picking a place, and then how do you go about setting it up? And do you mind talking about that?
No, I don't mind at all. It's
there's
really
a lot of people out there that are curious about how an organization goes out. Well, I don't want to call it an organization because you really just
we're just a group of friends.
it's
a group of like-minded friends.
Yeah, and we're independent. We don't There's no dues, no nothing that we have to pay, or there's no director or leader. We all have an equal say in what we're doing.
That's great.
And we vote. Hey, how do you guys feel about doing this or whatever? And we'll try different things. We try different. I hate to say experiments, but that's what basically are the basic experiments. Mm-hmm. We try different techniques, different things. We'll try this. If it doesn't work, we'll try it a few times, and if it doesn't yield anything, then we'll move on to something else. But we're continually trying something new, something different, and things that do show results, or we do have results. We continue to do those. But how do we get to a location, or how do we find a location?
Use that. Yeah.
We look at areas that typically have had a history of sightings and reports, and I'm fearless when it comes to just walking up to somebody's house and knocking on their door and just straight up asking them, hey, have you ever seen a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, or have you ever heard anything out of the ordinary?
Sort of cold calling.
Yeah, basically, just, like a salesman, just talk to them. And there's a lot of times people say, no, I've never heard anything or seen anything. But we've been fortunate in the last couple of years. We've ran into some private landowners that have had sightings on or near their property, are familiar with the stories, with the reports, and just in talking to them, we usually will set up a meeting, and we'll take some of our evidence that we already have and show it to them and talk to them about it, and ask permission. Hey, can we come into your property? Can we set up and do some research over a weekend or whatever? And we've been fortunate that we've had some very willing landowners, and we hope that there's more.
That is a blessing. It really is. But you don't know unless you go out.
Exactly.
Do you tell them what you're doing there when you go to talk to them about this? Do you tell them why you're actually there? Or I don't beat around the bush and try to go the long way around the barn, as my grandfather used to say.
Right.
I just come right out with it and tell them, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it, and actually, you'd be surprised. Most people have been pretty receptive. Even with people that were not willing to let us use their property, have stopped and said, I don't know that I actually believe, because I've never seen anything myself, but I'm not willing to say that there's not anything there because of just the idea that, there have been a lot of sightings, and there has been a lot of things, and so it's on the most part, it's been very positive feedback from the people I've talked to.
That's good.
And
Mike, do you ever East Texas, Louisiana area, right?
Right. Well, we have ventured into Arkansas and southeast Oklahoma too. So,
pardon me.
Go ahead, Bryan.
Do you ever have any landowners, that you approach and they do give you permission, that are interested enough to want to come out there with you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
As a matter of fact, I sent you guys some pictures, a couple of pictures that were taken early February on a research outing. I hate to say expedition, because expedition tends to be like a long period of time. An outing is kind of,
last week with Robert Morgan. He let us know real quick what an expedition was.
Yeah, this is an outing. These are outings. We all have day jobs that really limit us as far as it's usually a weekend type thing, and I've been fortunate to be able to have a job that allows me, like a Friday, if I put in time and a time off request early enough that I can at least have a Friday off, and I can usually get into the field Thursday night and be there Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, instead of just Friday night, Saturday night. So, but the pictures I sent you were on private landowner's property here in East Texas. I'll go ahead and say it's on the Neches River. He has about 4,000 acres of timber, and we had some activity as far as we didn't have any vocals really per se, but we had some tree knocks that we did capture, and these were in the middle of the night after we had returned to base camp. And these are you can hear the recordings, and these are very deliberate. You can hear them on this. And what I'm talking about, the recordings, is we use a small Olympus digital voice recorders. And if you set those to a certain level, those will record on a AAA battery for, well, anywhere from 14 to 17 hours continuous recording. And we have these little safety boxes that they have a lanyard with a gator clip on them. And there's a hole in the bottom, and we have an external microphone that we plug into the recorder, and we hang this in a tree.
What kind of microphone do you use, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, there's several different.
A soft mic, or is it?
Yeah, it's just a little soft mic. Different. We use different brands, various ones.
And it's not one that's amplified or anything. It's just a regular mic.
No, it's not amplified. It's just a regular little mic. We've even figured out a way to do a 2-channel where we have a left and a right, so we can do it in stereo.
Good.
Which we can use those in determining if we know which one was the right channel and the left channel. Then if we have a walk-up sequence, we can basically tell from which direction that it came and left. And we've had that happen. We've got some recordings on the website. If you go to TexlaResearch.com, you can listen to some of those recordings. But that's pretty much what we do as far as that. Now, we do also use game cameras, and we have baited these and put these out as well to no avail. But we're going to continue to use both of those things. And we generally use a call blaster, which is it's a home-built system, but it's basically a large box that is been outfitted with a car stereo CD player with an amplifier and a booster, and it's 2 large outdoor speakers, and runs off of a marine battery. And we tote that into an area, and we put the speakers out, and we can call blast gibbon calls or purported vocalizations of Sasquatch, and sit back and listen and see if we get any kind of response.
I have to ask you, do you ever get a response?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I believe one of the recordings on your website was an answer to a call blast, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in the river bottoms of the Neches River in a very remote area. It was private property. It's several thousand acres that this gentleman has. And when I say swamp, this was really we had some rain a couple of weeks prior that had just really flooded. This is in a very serious floodplain area. You can simply, even in the dry weather, you can sit back and look at the tree line and see the black mark on all the trees where at some point in time the water had risen to that level and marked all the trees. And but it wasn't this bad. It wasn't that bad, but we did have to. We couldn't use regular vehicles to get into the area that we wanted to. But the landowner was kind enough to bring out 2 of the 2 6-wheel amphibious ATVs, nicknamed the Beast. I think we stole that from Autumn Williams, but the name of the amphib. But these areas, we had to actually use those to get back in to put the recorders and everything. There was no walking this stuff because it was at least thigh deep. My snake boots only go up to my knees, but this was in spots. It was thigh to waist deep swamp muck, and there were some appreciable pieces of land that were dry, that were higher up than the rest. And that's where we placed our recorders and some cameras and things, and had some very interesting results. And we were call blasting from an area, I'd probably say a quarter of a mile away from where we did capture. It was, you could hear the call blaster very faintly in the recording. In the last 2 blasts that we did in the sequence, and then the recording picks up the response, which was actually down in it sounded like it was in an area that we know was a slough-type area that had water in it. And so that's one of the recordings. But the other one, which is, I think you mentioned in the opening, was being hosted by Autumn Williams on her website, is what we call
have both of these recordings here tonight with us, right?
Yeah, I think I sent those to you. Those were the one that I sent you. We call the cough sequence is actually the cut down version, because the actual full length version, which is on Autumn's site, is about 35 minutes long. It was recorded in this flooded out area. There was a hill. This is about 75 yards actually from the river, the bank of the river, going up a hill that had been clear cut about 30 yards wide, 20 or 30 yards wide, all the way to the top. And there was a deer stand at the top of this hill. Down at the river, and Bruce Dinsford walked up about halfway and put one of the recorders and baited it with, of all things, peanut butter. You wouldn't think that peanut butter has a very strong odor, but if you go out into the woods and you open a thing of peanut butter, just the human olfactory can smell it from 30 feet away.
And everything likes peanut butter.
Everybody,
I don't know. Yeah.
Hey, Laurie?
Yes.
They're asking that you speak up a little bit. They're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, my goodness. Is that better? Hello?
Yeah, it's better.
Hello?
We have one question already for you, Mike. Would you mind
Sure.
answering this question for Jordan Warner? He's a young researcher, friend of ours, and he's a very good listener, and he's a very smart young man. He has a question for you. His question is, in the Big Thicket area of Texas, is that the highest concentration of Bigfoot sightings in East Texas?
You know, that in my opinion, I would have to say, historically speaking, yeah. Because if you're going back as many years as there's been stories of the wild man of the Big Thicket, that's probably down in that area is probably I would say a very high concentration. Probably the highest, but there's a lot of other areas in East Texas that have quite a high number of sightings reported. But most definitely, the Big Thicket is a large area that I mean, there are pictures I've seen, aerial photographs, two side-by-side photographs that were placed up, and we were asked to pick which one was the Big Thicket, and you couldn't tell the difference because one was the Big Thicket and the other was an aerial photograph of the Congo.
Oh wow!
That gives you an idea of why it's called the Big Thicket. It's very thick. It's very
very thick.
It's just like walking into a jungle. You know, I mean, it was being in that area has been an amazing. You know, being able to go in there was simply an amazing thing. And there was quite a bit of activity that we had in the Big Thicket area.
And one of our listeners, Old Crow, she says the Big Thicket's larger than some states.
Oh yeah. Some of the northeastern states, it's huge. The area it's vast. It's a vast area, and very easily to conceal something that doesn't want to be seen. You know, I mean, but in the same, let me qualify this statement by saying that there are a lot of areas in East Texas that are very thick, very hard for humans to get into, so therefore they just don't go, not with any regularity, that could very easily hide these this population of I hate to say creatures, you know, it's
manimals. You call them manimals, don't you?
Manimals, yeah. They're
that's a really good name for them.
They're very intelligent, so.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a higher intelligence than what I think really we can understand. So.
Yeah.
I think they're highly underestimated, to be honest with everyone.
I had higher intelligence than a gorilla or anything like that.
Absolutely. I had someone once describe them to me as being land-dwelling dolphins. Chasing these things through the woods is like trying to chase a dolphin in the middle of the ocean in the middle of the night. You know, it's really impossible to try to chase one. To sit and let them come. Yeah, to sit and let them come to you is the only way that this is going to happen.
Well, you have to do it on their terms anyway. You're only going to see them if they want you to see them.
And Autumn Williams has made a very. I'm going to probably refer to her a lot because I really admire her and her work. But a statement that she made was made to her by a witness that had an ongoing encounters on her property in Northern California. And the statement was they were researching this area and they had these things that they came out. And the woman told her, we have to leave now. And she said, why? And she said, because we have to let them remain in control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't feel like that they're in control of the situation, they're not going to present themselves.
Exactly.
You know, and there's a really good reason why Diane Fossey and Dr. Jane Goodall were so successful in their research with the gorillas and chimpanzee, because they allowed them to remain in control. There were no quick movements. There were no anything that would upset the order of things.
They didn't do anything suspicious either. You know.
Exactly.
Yes.
But they allowed
them. When you're dealing with an intelligent species, you can't. It's kind of like you have to give them the respect they deserve, and the fact that they know what you're doing. They've watched enough people.
Exactly.
And you really can't be too slick around them. Not really.
Exactly. The thing of it is, I know this may sound funny, but humans are basically Sasquatch's only form of entertainment. I mean, they can't watch American Idol, so
no.
They watch the little pink hairless apes come into the woods and make fools of themselves on a regular basis, and they watch and they learn. That's what I absolutely believe. They've watched and they've learned a lot of what we're doing, even when we're not aware that they're there, that they are watching what we do. So in a lot of sense, the people that are out there just camping and having a good time and not trying to do anything have sightings. They come in closer and closer. They get more curious. They come in and see what's going on. They hear children playing, and there's many reports of them being seen just watching children at play, and the laughter and the sound that children make. And so going into the woods and trying to be James Bond and be all stealthy and everything else, I really don't think works. If you just go in with the attitude that you're going to go in and just be a camper and you're going to cook.
Kind of like a Ray Wallace attitude. You know, Ray Wallace says, let's go in there and have a good time. They'll show up.
Sure.
That's what I've always heard his attitude was, you know. And
yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, if you just go in there and just have a good time. Now, last weekend, of course, I was in the torrential rains of southern Louisiana.
For
the entire weekend, and the one complaint I do have is the fact that it rained from the time we left to the time all the way through till we got there. Every waking moment we were there, and we laid down to go to bed Saturday night at around midnight, and 10 minutes later the rain stopped. and it didn't drink another drop.
That's the way it always goes.
Mother Nature didn't want to cooperate. But the thing of it is, we did have several people in our base camp, and Dulcie and I and Scott Kessler decided we were going to stay at camp, and the rest were going to go do some road running. Even in this, it was only raining real light at that point, but they decided to go out and do some road running in this area we were in, and so Scott kicked up the stereo on his Tahoe, and Dulcie threw some kielbasa's on the grill, and we were telling jokes and cutting up and everything else. And a half hour into this, we heard behind the camp. Now it was a good distance away, but we started hearing this low moan sound that we couldn't identify, and we heard it several times, and then of course it stopped. There were some twig breaks and snaps back in there beyond our sight. Of course, it was after dark and everything, but that, can we say that was a squatch? No, we can't, but it was definitely odd. It was out of the norm for animals of that area. So yeah, just being normal in the woods, just being yourself, being a camper, I think draws their attention. And I'll go into another theory. Now, this is my theory and my theory alone. A lot of people are talking about why we haven't had a picture of one captured by a game camera.
Yes.
And my theory is basic in its principle. If we think of it on the terms of that they are watching us, they're watching what we do. Even if we don't know they're there, they're quiet enough, and they're very good at being very stealthy and very quiet and unassuming, so that people don't notice them. They're watching what we do. Now, if a hunter goes into a particular area and he's putting out game cameras and he's being watched or observed doing this, now I'm not saying that a squatch knows that that's a camera that's going to take its picture. What I'm saying is they watch what that hunter has done and put a box on a tree. Right. And they continue to watch that. And then let's say a deer or a hog or something walks past that box and they see a flash of light. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, they say, well, that's interesting. Then then a few days later, that same hunter comes back and he's in his tree stand there, and the deer or hog walks by and shoots the deer or the hog, whatever it may be, and the gun, the muzzle, has a muzzle flash.
Right.
So in their mind, they may associate that box flashing with a gun flashing, and whatever else in nature that flashes that may not be something that they really enjoy would be lightning. So they associate these flashes with something bad. Not that it's taking a picture, not that it's doing them harm by taking their picture, but that flash itself is being something that's bad. Well, now let me back up here.
Something. Let me iterate something. If you take a aluminum pie plate and nail it to a tree on a game trail, the game will go around that pie plate.
Uh-huh. Because
it's something different in the woods.
Exactly.
And they're afraid of it. They don't know what it is, but, it doesn't belong there.
Right.
And I think game casters, even though they are camouflaged and hid and everything else, yes. Okay. Well, go ahead with what you were saying. I'm sorry. You were backing up.
But now I want to back up, and I want to explain to those who would say, well, okay, what about the game cameras that don't flash, that run on infrared? Mm-hmm. Pure speculation, and at this point in the game, that's all any of us are doing anyway, is speculating about these creatures. Is that is there a possibility that their visual acuity allows them to see infrared? We don't know, but it may be.
I believe they can, because I know other animals can. They say they can't. But I actually watched a video of a cat that was coming down a hall that was crisscrossed with infrared beams. And the cat was jumping over the beams. Now, this was a cat. Tennessee can tell you about his, what is it you've got over there, Tennessee, a hamster?
My son has a hamster, and I have a Gen 2 IR monocular, and the first day I got it, that evening when it got dark, went in the room where this hamster was, and it's completely pitch dark. And with this IR on, the hamster was following the light beam from left to right, up and down.
Right.
Its head. He was watching the movements of it. Now, I was standing back 6-8 feet from the cage, and so he couldn't see me. But he was watching this light beam because I was focusing it on corners of the cage, but he would run to that corner when I'd shine the light there. Then he would run to the next corner. You know, he was following that beam wherever it went, and I found that really astonishing that something that small, you know, a rodent, can see that.
That's exactly what they are, rodents, that pet rodents.
Right. Well, I just want to. Just what I'm saying. We know nothing about these, about their anatomy. We know nothing about their visual acuity. We do know that in nature, animals have better hearing. Their olfactory, or the sense of smell, is far beyond ours, and what's to say that their visual acuity isn't way beyond what ours is? You know, cats can see at night. I'm just speculating, of course, but it makes sense.
And that's all we can do is throw our theories out there at this time.
Right.
It's as good a speculation, you know, as anything else, and
I agree.
And it makes sense. I mean, that these beings have been around, you know, since man has been around, and that they needed that extra part of that sight sense to help them be able to maneuver in the darkness at night.
Well, just something I heard recently was, you know, the difference between man or humans and them in one respect is that humans tend to live very heavy on the land. They build and they destroy and they rebuild and they, you know, and they mark their everywhere that they go. Humans mark it.
Leave destruction behind.
Right, and these beings.
We are so uncouth. We really are, as a race.
But they live in complete autonomy with their surroundings, in perfect harmony with their surroundings, and you know, they don't live heavy on the ground. They don't destroy and mark something that in a way that would, in 10 years, you know, you're not going to go back and find where one of these things had been. You know, they're very harmonious with their surroundings, and they're very good at what they do. They are very, very subtle, very quiet in some respects. I mean, vocalizations are not quiet, but I mean, when trying to observe us doing what we do, they're very good at it. They can go and come very quietly and without being seen or heard, and you know, and I think, like I said, that they use us as their form of entertainment. You know, what are the little silly hairless apes going to do now? You know, I mean, I sit and chuckle, you know, and think, what are they thinking in their minds when they're watching us? Is it something that they're, I don't know if they have a sense of humor, but do they sit back and chuckle and laugh at us at what we're doing?
They do.
Or are they looking at us suspiciously with fear? And I think a lot of that plays into the reason why they stay so secluded and far away, because they know that really the only threat they have out there to them is humans. Mm-hmm. And so they pick and choose where and when they're seen, and sometimes it's by accident. And you know, and Rick Knoll made a very good point that a lot of these sightings are truly just accidental sightings, where someone has pushed into one of their territories and crossed a boundary that either made them confront the person or leave in such a manner that they were seen, you know, or left evidence of their passing. We'll look at the Patterson film. You know, a lot of people have, you know, said, well, this thing just got up and walked away, and it didn't act like it. You know, the point of it is, it got up and it walked away. It left.
Yes. It
didn't stay. It didn't. You know, it was out in the open. It was exposed. It didn't want to be there. And you know, they were saying, well, how did they get so close? I believe it was because they were on horseback. The scent of the horses concealed the scent of the humans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were able to get within range of this thing and film it.
So many of the experiences that humans have with Sasquatch are accident and happenstance, like you just stated there. But many of them are, I believe, are under their. In other words, they set up the circumstances.
Right.
They are in control of it.
Right.
And allow us to see them when
they choose.
They want us to. Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe that it is strictly up to them, that they choose you. I've heard that. I can't tell you how many times now. I don't know if that's true. You know, but I've heard that. Mike, I would like to play one of your recordings now, if that's okay with you. Which one would you like to play first? Then, could
whichever
you
you feel is
about it?
whichever one you choose. Just tell me which one.
Well, the coughing sequence is the first one I have up here.
That's fine.
You want to tell a little about that before we play it?
Sure. I spoke about it a little earlier. We were in an area along the Neches River. This was it's a very remote area. There's actually one road in and one road out, and because of the nature of the fact that we'd had a lot of rain the week prior to, we were not able to actually camp in the location where we wanted to. We were having to camp further in, away from the river, and use the six-wheel amphibious ATV to actually get into these areas where we wanted to put the cameras and recorders and things. And we were actually camped along the road in to this location. And now, getting to that location, you had to go through two huge game fences. Again, it was private property, private land. We had permission from the landowner to be there. And so we went into this area mid to late afternoon and started setting up our stuff. And it was just Bruce Dinsford and myself. Everybody else was back at camp. And we went in and put up all the recorders and game cameras in predetermined areas because we had already been in this area several times, and we were kind of familiar with where the trails went and had marked them on maps and kind of marked, well, this would be a good spot along this game trail, and we're going to try this area or whatever. And this particular area that we got the call sequence was along this hill. Now, this hill, it's pretty steep. And like I said, it's clear cut, about 20 feet across, just a straight path up to the top of the hill. And it comes directly from the river. I mean, if you're standing at the bottom of the hill looking up this trail, if you turn around, you're 20 feet from the bank of the river. And so prior to that, we had been on another outing in this area and had walked over into this particular area and had early afternoon, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, had something growl at us from this location. And immediately tree knocks start going off in 2 different locations around us. So we decided that this would...
How close were these tree knocks?
50, 75 yards at best.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was in daylight. This was in the afternoon. And we backed out of that area pretty quick because we just had this overwhelming feeling that we were not welcome. We were getting close to something, and it didn't want us to be there. So we, in this particular, this was several months later, we had gone in and decided, hey, we're going to put a recorder over there and a camera. So what we did was I stayed at the ATV right there at the river's edge, and Bruce walked up this hill. I didn't even watch where he went. He went up the path, and I stayed there, and a little while later he came back. And then we had other recorders already put out and cameras, and we went back to base camp and waited for it to get good and dark, and then we moved in to an open field coming into the area that was still dry, and we sat there and we did some call blasting, and we just listened, and we have these large, very large parabolic dishes, and we're listening for sounds and things. And we had some calls that we thought were suspicious, but it was one of those things that were so far away. We just so we wrapped up for the night. We went back to camp. We sacked out. The next morning we go back into the area, and we go back and we just trace our steps and pick all the cameras up, pick all the recorders up. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from Bruce Dinsford saying, "Hey, I just emailed you this call. You're not going to believe it." And what you're going to play is a cut down version, because the original version was 35 minutes long, and according to the recorder, was recorded at 3:30 in the morning, 3:20, something like that, in the morning. And what you hear is the cut down version, which is the main sequence of events of this what we call the cough sequence.
Okay, I'm going to play it now for everyone. This is just incredible capture of a very unique sound.
And I'll say this at first: if you'll just listen, you can hear the steps, and you can hear the breathing. And you have to realize that
so quiet.
Yeah, the beginning of it is fairly quiet.
Okay.
I'm turning the volume up.
Wow. Somebody can hear frogs? I can't hear anything. Oh, I hear it coming.
Yeah, I hear it.
Is there any way you can turn it up some more?
It's up at 400%.
Oh my gosh, what happened to that?
That's what we call the cough sequence.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, we had baited that with peanut butter, and I don't know if you could hear in the beginning. All of the recorder, the peanut butter, and everything was, well, I'd say about 6.5 feet off the ground. Bruce Dinsford stands at 6'2", and everything was above his head,
Okay.
and about 4 feet from the trunk of the tree. The peanut butter was spread on the leaves, on the limbs, and everything, and the recorder was hanging above that. So
you really moved in there really fast.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, in pitch black, it walked right up to the peanut butter. It smelled it, and it was at some points in there. You can, if you really listen, it sounds as if the peanut butter is being sucked off of the leaves or licked off of the leaves. Now, this is like I said, this is all about 6.5 feet up off the ground, about 4 feet from the trunk of the tree. So.
Way up in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, like 3:30 in the morning. Now, because we didn't see this happen, we can't say for 100% that's a squatch. But you have to ask yourself the question. You start deducting, and you come up with one of two things. Either we have a hobo living in the river bottoms of the Neches River, the swamps, that
can see at night.
That can see at night, and walked right up to the peanut butter and started licking the peanut butter off it. He must really love peanut butter. Or we had our target species, which would be a squatch. Now, we want to talk a little bit about. I want to talk about this one particular area because a lot of things happened in this one spot or this one area. That's just one recording in a series of several different things that happened in that one particular area that lent us to believe that the target species was there and in abundance, apparently. We have recordings. Of course, we let the recorders run all through the night. Even after we go to bed, those recorders are continually running, capturing any sounds that may occur. So we have recordings that are on the Texla website.
Very awesome recordings, people. If you get a chance to go over there, I was totally blown away and impressed. And you know how I love recordings. So
well, these are we were lucky. I really have to say that, and the fact that I'm in the field with some really great researchers in Bruce and Bob Dinsford and Lonnie Rabelais and Scott Kessler and Todd's not really an official member of the group, but he feels like he is. He's been with us so many times, and I want to send a shout out to those guys because they do an incredible job every time we go in the field. And but the recordings, we've got recordings at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning of tree knocks. Now people say, well, that's possibly a limb falling out of a tree. Well, there's no crashing sound to this. There's this very deliberate. It's like somebody took a Louisville Slugger and just walloped the you-know-what out of a tree. And the interesting thing is we have recordings from several different recorders of the same tree knock. So that way we can actually triangulate where it came from, and you'll hear the tree knock, and then about 10 seconds later you'll hear another tree knock in the distance, as if it's a form of communication saying, hey, where are you at? Oh, you're over there. Oh, okay. Well, I'm over here. That's kind of the way I look at it, that they're communicating with each other in a way that would be unobtrusive to someone. Instead of letting out a loud scream or a yell, they knock on a tree.
That's their
we do
telegraph.
have a question from the chat. I hate to interrupt, but Bill Green is wanting to know, hey, Mike Hall, do you have possible film footages of Sasquatch or a photo?
I haven't taken any film or have a photograph that I have taken. I do have a photograph from a witness that I call it the eight-face picture. Now, of course, it is just like everything else that's been produced. It is a blob squatch is what we call it. The story was simple enough. It was a lady who lived not far from the Neches River, was on her way to town. It was early morning. It was the middle of summer. And she, on this dirt road, was a 90-degree right-hand turn. And off to the right in that turn was a little pond, a very green, slimy, muck-type little pond. And she just happened to look over, and she saw this squatch about waist deep in this water wading through this pond. And she completely freaked out as she spun her car around, went back home, got her camera, came back, and what she had was a little basic 35-millimeter camera, the kind that has the red eye reduction type thing on it, and the creature was gone. So she just started taking snapshots of the area, and she drove around the corner, and there was a tree, the only tree in this whole line of trees here that was, it looked like it had been just ripped to shreds. And so she thought, well, that's interesting. I'll take a picture of that. So she steps out of her car. She's standing at the front of her car, and she's getting ready to take this picture when something screams at her. And the picture takes, she jumps in the car, and she takes off. About a week later, when she had the film developed, she's going through the prints, and that picture of the tree, she notices on the left-hand side of the picture, back up in the brush, there is a figure. Now it's only like the chest, shoulder, head, like it was kneeling, squatting down behind a bush. But in looking at the photograph, it looks like the face of an ape there. We went into this area and went to the exact location. We took photographs from the same camera, same type of film, same everything, and we investigated the area. There was no trees, shrubs, bushes, limbs of any kind that could be mistaken for this shape. And to me, that just lent itself to being something very credible.
Mike, can this pic be seen anywhere?
No, I haven't.
No?
I've never released that picture out because it is a blob squatch. You can't say for sure. I wasn't the one that took the picture. I wasn't there when the picture was taken, so I can't. I'm not willing to go out there and say it's a very compelling photograph, but it doesn't. I mean, I have the witness's report. I have her statements, but I have in the photograph, but I have nothing else.
Okay, we have a caller.
Do, yeah.
I don't know who it is.
This is Driver.
Oh, hello, Driver.
Hi, how are you, Laurie?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
This is a great show. Mike is a fantastic guy. I was fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time out in the woods with Mike and his wife, and you can tell Mike has tossed a football around a couple of years back. He's a big, intimidating-looking fellow, but when you get to talking to him, you'll see that he is genuine, articulate. I mean, just a great person to hang out with, and I really enjoyed the 2 nights that I spent with him.
Okay, Mike, we're wanting to know, how much did you pay this guy to come on here and say this?
Well, apparently it's going to cost me a lot more than what I thought. No, I'm just kidding. No, man.
Hey, no problem. Hey, I got a good question for you.
Sure.
Mike, you have been more successful than most on your ability to get some great recordings. And as we all know that the Achilles heel of these intelligent beings are their curiosity. You have been successful with using call blasting and things like that in your area, and peanut butter. I was just wondering, do you use anything else to pique their curiosity and has been successful, like maybe lights, any type of stimuli, to play up on their curiosity? And I'm just going to go ahead and let you go, and you can just answer that to the best of your ability, and I'll listen.
Thank
you, Driver.
Driver, I want to tell you, man, I look forward to seeing you in Honubby this year. And we've tried a few other things. Not really a great deal. I'm going to continue to try to push to figure out ways to do exactly that, pique their curiosity. There's a little toy that some people, I'm sure that they go to the dollar store and they see the little rubber balls that when you squeeze them, they have the multicolored lights inside, and they run for a few seconds and then they stop. Well, what I would like to see and try to do in the future, and we've been working on it, is to get one of those little balls to run continuously. If there's a way, I know that those batteries that are in there are like the hearing egg type batteries, but if there was a way we can hotwire it to, say, a AA battery and have it continually running, I'd like to hang one of those in a tree. I'd like to, something that I saw some researchers in, I think it was in Washington State do, something that's very unobtrusive and can draw their curiosity, is a wind chime. You can go into any store, Walmart, somewhere, and go to the garden section and get a $10 wind chime. And I want to, I've tried that without any success, but I only tried it once. I'm going to definitely go back and do that again, is use a wind chime, because it's a very interesting sound in the woods. It's non-threatening. And maybe that would pique their curiosity enough to come and find out what's making these little tingling sounds, in the trees, and have
hey, Mike,
check it out.
Can I throw this out at you? I was looking through a catalog the other day, and I saw these about 8 to 10 inch globes that use the sun's solar power to charge during the day, and for about 8 hours after dark, they glow green and red, or not red, green and blue, and I thought those were some very mellow colors that if you were to set that up in the woods and let it charge during the day, that way you wouldn't have to keep going back and resetting up your baits. If you just had something like that would charge all day and glow at night, you can maybe have a camera pointed towards it.
Yeah, that exactly. You have to get with you on finding out what catalog that was. I'd like to see that.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and hang up, okay?
All right, Driver. Hey, man, look forward to
seeing
you
later.
All right, buddy.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, Driver Operator's a great guy. He's with a really good group of guys, the MABRC. Those guys are top-notch researchers as well, and Driver's one of the guys that's in the field a lot. And I appreciate him calling in like he did. That was neat.
That was. We've never had him call in. We feel honored.
And it's we've got a lot of things that we want to try in the future and continue to try new things. And we've tried other baits as well. We've tried fruit. We have had one of our guys just on his own, Lonnie Rabelais down in South Louisiana, was using a basket and putting fresh fruit in this basket and coming back. Now, of course, it could be raccoons or anything else, but there's the basket's there, the fruit's gone, but there's no peels or no evidence of anything on the ground in the immediate vicinity to say that whatever it was took it and ate it right there. It took it away somewhere and ate it. But don't know, just we're going to try some different things. We're going to continue to do different things. And I mean, there's lots of, if we knew what there's a great quote by Albert Einstein that I used at last year's conference, was that if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research now, would it?
No.
So there you go.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and play another one of your recordings. I'm going to play the
Okay.
Whoop sequence next, and I hope it plays better than the other one did.
Well, I was Dulcie was in the living room on the computer listening to the show, and came back with a handwritten note and just showed it to me. Said the recordings were kind of low, and you really couldn't hear the other recording until the actual got really close to the microphone, apparently. And but the beginning of it, I told you, was very, very soft and subtle. So, but you know, she's you have to understand, she's heard the recordings firsthand here, so she's used to hearing every little nuance and sound that from beginning to end.
Laurie, I think we need to sort of give a heads up to the listeners out there. We're going to turn this thing up to 400%, so you may have to turn your volume down a little bit.
Oh, well, it might distort, so you want to start out small and move up. Let's try that. And if we have to play it over again, we will.
All right. Okay. You ready?
Go right ahead.
We're ready. That sounds good.
Now, if you notice, in the first call was actually double tone. Now the coyotes kick off, of course. But that very first whoop sound, if you
I think we should play it again.
If you should play it again.
Yeah,
we're going to play it again, turn it up a little bit more.
Okay.
It's kind of distorted when you're hearing it on the phone. How does it sound in the chat room, people? Does it sound okay? Sounds like a tribe of wild, hairy people, Jordan Warner says. Okay, well, we're doing good then.
Okay. Now, the one call in this sequence of calls, if you'll listen, is the very first whoop, because it actually, if you'll pay attention, it has there's a double tone to it. It has a high resonance and a low resonance at the same time.
Okay.
Which is something I've never heard before.
The people in the chat are saying it sounds good. Okay. Got
good.
Here we go.
Okay.
Just the first one. You can stop it at any time, because now the coyotes kick off. But that first one, the very first one, if you'll notice, it had a double tone to it. It was a high resonance and a low resonance tone, and the one that followed behind it did not.
Right.
So I've never heard a double tone whoop like that before. But these, of course, are. I do believe we're at some point going to have them analyzed a little bit better. But it was very, very interesting. Now, that recording was in response to recording that's known out there in the Bigfoot world as the Ohio Howl. That we had been playing that, and this is the response that we got. And that was captured by
that Ohio call.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
So we have had responses, and but we also use gibbons, and we use chimpanzee, and we use several others. I think you have one more.
Yes, I do.
You have the Sherburne?
Yes, I do. Sure. I have that, and I also put mine up so that we can compare the two.
That's fine.
I put my siren call in, too, also. What was interesting about these two different recordings, they were recorded in two different locations, and up until I heard this, I didn't think anyone else had recorded this. And I actually had sent mine to Dr. Robert Benson at the Center of Bioacoustics down in Corpus Christi. He analyzed it and could not identify it. Sent it back to me and said, Laurie, I don't know what it is. So I think first I'm going to play mine, and then I'm going to play mine. So,
okay.
Tennessee, if you can get that siren call.
All right.
We'll play that a couple of times.
All right, here we go.
One more time.
One more time.
On that one.
Okay.
Okay. Now they cleaned that up for me. I
that was a compliment.
That did it.
Yeah, the cleaned up version I want to say right now is it was compliments of Bob Dinsford.
Tell him thank you for me so very much. I've got much more to send to him if he's willing.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Knows how to do that, and basically he's just taking out the crickets and the background noise from the call itself, using a computer program that can do that. He can take out all the little when it's certain megahertz crickets and things of that nature. You can isolate those and delete them. So that's what he's done.
Oh, he's got a great program then.
And then,
program.
And then, if you would go ahead and play, this one was what we call the Sherburne Scream.
Okay.
And it was recorded by Bruce Dinsford, Bob Dinsford, Scott Kessler, and Lonnie Rabelais on a trip I wasn't able to make, but it was recorded in southern Louisiana.
Here we go.
Play it one more time, Tennessee.
All right, here we go.
Now, that recording was taken off of one of the parabolic dishes that was recording. It was pointed into a swamp area. What it is, it sounds very primate to me. So.
Yes, it does. And, someone might say, well, it's the beginning of the barred owl scream. But generally, when barred owls scream like that, they hoot afterwards. It's a great sound. But the one you have is not a barred owl. I don't believe it is. And it is incredible. And it's so much like the other one.
I don't think that he did. He did mention that your recording was similar to some other recordings that we've heard, vocalizations, but from another gentleman that actually has gone into an area that I think that you've gone into, and he's captured some recordings that are very similar to what you have. So
okay, there's several in the chat that are saying they believe it's a fox.
Well, according to the guys, if it was a fox, it was about a 500-pound fox.
Well, Robert Benson, he ran it through, and he said it was similar to a fox, but it wasn't a fox. It had a different optic.
Well, now let's quantify what they're saying. Are they talking about yours, or are they talking about the Sherburne scream?
I don't know. I'm not sure. They just say they have a fox here that sounds exactly the same, and
okay.
Yeah, that sounds like that. And but then we also know that these animals imitate other wildlife also. So.
Well, sure. Yeah, that's another. That's an area that I really haven't gotten into. I've heard a lot of interesting stories, and one in particular coming out of southeast Oklahoma from a gentleman that was one of the visitors to the Honobi conference last year. He and his father have two separate parcels of land on either side of a mountain. One, his father's on one side and he's on the other, and there's nothing between them but the mountain and forest. And this was in the springtime, and the young man was telling, he said, yeah, him and his wife in the spring, they open the windows at night instead of running their air conditioning. And he gets a phone call and in the middle of the night. Now, the young man that was telling me this, they have a large stand-up cuckoo clock in their living room, and it makes a very unique sound when it chimes. And he got a phone call in the middle of the night from his father saying, I'm listening to your cuckoo clock walking through the woods.
Wow.
And he said, what do you mean? He goes, there's something walking through the woods over here next to my place that is imitating or sounds just like your cuckoo clock or the chimes, the chiming sound. It's not so much a cuckoo clock, it's a grandfather clock type thing. But
oh my goodness, I bet that was bizarre.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things that came out of last year's conference. For me, it was an interesting story and very odd, to say the least. But this year, the conference is I want to say to all the listeners out there, if there's any way that you can beg, borrow, or steal to get to this year's Honobi conference, which is going to be the first weekend in October, Honobi, Oklahoma. And if you're not familiar with how to find it on a map, it is in the southeast corner, east of Antlers, or northeast of Antlers, south of Tallahena. And if you're looking for the word, it's actually if you were to try to pronounce it the way it's spelled, it would be Honobia, but it's pronounced Honobi. And the locals there will correct you real quick on the mispronunciation of.
Pronounce it right.
Yeah, pronounce it right when you're there. But this year's conference, last year the keynote. I know that you said I was a keynote speaker. I'm not the keynote speaker. I'm just one of the speakers.
Okay.
And last year I was just one of the speakers. Now Dave Pilates was there with Harvey Pratt, and they both gave excellent presentations. Driver operator from MABRC gave an excellent presentation as well. But the actual keynote speaker of the day there was Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who gave an amazing presentation. This year we have returning to Honobi Dr. Jeff Meldrum, along with author and Bigfoot researcher Tom Powell, who wrote.
I forgot to mention Tom Powell, who is going to be on our show soon.
Yeah.
They're listening.
Tom is going to be coming in from Oregon and doing a presentation. Of course, he was one of the ones who was present with Rick Knoll when they had the discovery of the Skookum cast. And he's the author of the book, The Locals. And if any of you have not read that book, you have to go get it. It is an incredible page-turner. It's not just a bunch of scientific analyses or speculation about Sasquatch, Bigfoot. It's a really compelling book, a lot of interesting thoughts and stories, and just really well written and put together, and just an incredible book. But he's going to be there as well. Kathy Strain, who is anthropologist for, she's going to be so angry with me if I don't remember this, but I believe it's in Sonora, California. She does Native American studies and anthropological things that have to do with a specific area there. And the pictographs, the hairy man pictograph in particular, she's had a lot of things in her book. She's got a book that's out. I can't remember the name of that. She's going to kill me for that too. But she's going to be one of the speakers, along with myself. Yes.
Archaeologist?
I think, did I say anthropologist? I think she's archaeologist. But she does Native American studies and has a lot of her studies that go through the Native American aspect about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and a very excellent program that she's going to be bringing. Along with some, I do believe, and I can't say much more than what I'm going to say, but I do believe there's going to be some very eye-opening, and how can I say this? It's going to turn a lot of the Bigfoot world upside down. Revelations that are going to be presented at this year's conference. So
I've heard that, and everyone needs to try to go. They really do.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Hear it.
It's going to be something that no one, if you're even remotely interested in the phenomenon, needs to miss. It's just going to be an amazing. And and actually, if anybody out there has a MySpace, they can search for Hanobi Bigfoot. There's going to be there's a lot of information on the MySpace page there about the conference this year, about the speakers. There will be continual updates throughout the year, leading up to the first weekend in October. And they can.
I wanted to say, if you can't find his, you can go to mine. It's on our homepage, on our show page. You can go to my MySpace, and you can find him. He is right there on my friends list. You click and go straight there, because I know I had trouble finding you. You remember?
Right, you did. And
if you can't find him on my MySpace, and go right there and join up. I encourage everybody to do that too.
Yeah, just add us as a friend, and there'll be continual updates that I'll be making on that. And I also, before I go any further, I want to personally thank Scott Davis, the artist, who has so graciously allowed us to use his Bigfoot paintings, digital paintings for this year's conference, and the T-shirts and the posters and the website, the MySpace and everything else. I have to thank him very much for those. But going back to what we do, a lot of people scratch their heads probably and look at us and think,
May I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
We had a caller a little while ago, and I apologize that we were trying to find a break. Caller, if you would call back in, I promise as soon as you pop up, I will put you on the air.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Please call in. I'll try to answer any questions I can.
Stand by and take your questions.
Sure.
Roger wants to know, Mike, what is planned with Ed Smith research this year? Do you know?
Excuse me, who?
Driver asked, Mike, what is planned with Ed Smith research this year?
What is planned? I really am What I'd have to say about that is we got some things that are coming up. Don't know any great detail about any of it. There's the promise of being some very interesting things. I don't have a lot of detail to give him, but that it does look like it's going to be very interesting and very promising. So, that's to the extent of what it all entails. I don't know. I have to wait for Mr. Smith to reveal all that and talk to us and sit down and say, okay, this is what the plans are, and see where we go from there. But it does look good. It does look very exciting, and looking forward to joint cooperation with other research groups. Just on a personal note, I do want to say that for several years I've watched with a lot of hard feelings about the fact that there are so many research groups out there that have such a great hatred for one another that they really it can't see the benefit in actual cooperation with other groups in doing this research. It's like they're walking backwards instead of moving forward. Mm-hmm. And if we agreed, nobody's ever going to agree 100% on everything.
It's almost like religion and politics.
Exactly. No one's going to ever completely agree on research, but we have to put aside differences and opinions and focus on what's best for the research. What can we do that we haven't done in the past differently to move this research forward, to help to classify this unknown species and bring it to the light to the rest of the world, and instead of backbiting and going against each other because one person doesn't like what the other person thinks or how they do things or how that, and it's kind of silly and sad, and that I think is what Driver was wanting to know. The cooperation is going to happen. A lot of people are going to not like the idea of that, and that's okay. Everybody's got their opinion, and they're entitled to that. And I'm going to be the first one to say I'm not ever going to dissuade somebody from their opinion. That's their entitlement. But I believe, and the guys I research with believe wholeheartedly, that if we can cooperate with other groups, we can progress further in a shorter amount of time than the research has moved in the last 50 years. We can make great strides by doing that instead of fighting against each other, bringing it together. And I'm just imagining in my head if every research group in America or in North America pooled its resources, how fast would we actually be able to reach our goal in classifying these beings, these creatures, animals, whether you call it Sasquatch or Bigfoot or Oma or Selatek or Seatko or Buquas or Skookum, whatever your woolly booger, it doesn't matter what you call them, swamp ape, skunk ape. if there were the cooperation between the groups instead of fighting like a tug of war against each other.
Exactly.
We could just really, blow the top off this thing.
We have a question in the chat, Mike, if you don't
sure.
mind. Bigfoot Field Guide. Please ask Mike about the recording you got at Honobi. Am I saying that right?
Honobi, yeah.
Honobi. Last year that corresponds with what the MABRC recorded.
Yeah. I took some recorders up with me last year to the Honobi conference, and on Saturday night, just Dulcie and myself, knowing exactly where these recorders were placed, I placed 2 of the digital voice recorders out, and we did capture some vocals that just so happened the guys from MABRC actually recorded the same vocals from a different vantage point, from a different location.
Wow.
And now they are, I think ours were a little louder than theirs. If I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong in that, but I think our recorder picked it up a little clearer than theirs. But then again, I think my recorder was kind of in an exposed area, and they were recording from up in the trees. I don't know if that had any effect on it or what, but we did get some vocals, interestingly enough. Now,
you
this may cause...
You know that it is DW that is asking from MABR.
Okay, DW? Oh, yeah. The thing of it is that they were very interesting, and they're very good recordings. But being a researcher, I have to say that, the fact that we were in the woods during the Bigfoot Honobi Conference and Festival in that particular area, you can't disqualify the fact that somebody may have been out there trying to pull a fast one on us. Don't know. Very interesting sounds, though, very, and very good quality. But yeah, they're exactly the same ones. And do I think that somebody would? I don't think so. But I can't say for 100% certain that someone didn't do that. I'm just, I'm not laying anything on anybody. I'm just saying that, some local could have, done that. But so we have to add that into the equation. Do I think that's what happened? No, I think we had a vocal response. We caught some actual vocals. The interesting thing is that Friday night we were on the mountain with DW and Driver and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and we were out there in the woods, and the next day we showed up for the conference, and all of the vendors that were there for the festival were camped in their campers and tents and so on and so forth right there with their vending areas. And to a person, every time we walked through, they were saying, "Hey, man, we heard you call blasting last night," and we were like, "We didn't do any call blasting last night." They were hearing the vendors and the people that were there for the storytelling and all of the stuff like that. People were hearing these vocals coming from over the ridge on the other side of the little mountain there, from the actual campground and conference area. So there was, several interesting things. And like I said, the recordings are pretty darn good. And but like I said, we didn't see it make it. We didn't have any further activity that I can. We did have eye shine. Now, Dulcie's going to kill me when she hears this, but there was a point in the evening on Friday night when she had to visit the little girl's room. And so we walked up this gravel road where the vehicles were parked and went down to the furthest end, and I'm standing guard basically at the side of the vehicle, and she's at the end, and I hear her say, "What is that?" And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Right over there." And she stood up and she come around the side of the vehicle and she pointed, and there was eye shine coming from back in the woods over this little ridge. And this ridge is the same area that if you go to MABRC, as the Ridge Walker video is the same area. There were two eyes at about 7 feet up, just looking, staring at her. And then they went away, and I did a little whistle, and all of a sudden they were back, and they were looking at me. So, and then they just a few seconds, and then they disappeared, and then we heard this crashing noise back over in that area going down the ravine to the creek bed that was below. And a little bit later on, one of the other guys from MABRC and myself had walked a little ways up the road, and we were coming back, and we were standing stark still, and we heard a rock, like someone had been walking along this road and kicked a rock, come tumbling up the road. Now that was 50, 60 yards from us, but that was as far as anything in particular happening that we could see. Now I think the guys from MABRC said the night before they had a rock. They were sitting around the campfire, and they had a rock thrown right into the camp and actually landed in the fire right there in amongst all of them. So different activity, but definitely interesting, and the recording itself was very interesting. So anything else from anybody?
If you could elaborate on some more on your recording techniques and those little plastic boxes that you encapsulated your recorders in to prevent them from getting moisture on them. Could you tell us some more about that?
Well, actually, they're just the basic Olympus digital voice recorders. You can purchase those. Actually, I got those. Bruce Dinsford picked them up off eBay. They typically run off of a AAA battery. Bruce and Bob being the technical wizards that they are, have created a way that has a bypass where they can actually run it off of a AA battery that will increase the life of the recording by several hours. And the little plastic boxes, if you go to TexlaResearch.com, there are pictures on there of the recorders and these little boxes. I think that Bruce had said that the boxes were actually, you're able to purchase those if you go to like Dick's Sporting Goods. There's a first aid kit that is actually these boxes. They have a lanyard on them. They're to go, I guess, in your camping gear or whatever, but they're waterproof. And what we do is we just drill a small hole, just big enough for the microphone, in the bottom. We start the recorder, place it in the box, align the microphone port over the hole, plug the external microphone in, take the lanyard, which has a gator clip on it, and we hang it high in a tree, usually try to get it over 6 feet up to avoid a lot of the little animals, little things, and gator clip it as it's running.
Interrupt? We have a phone call.
Sure.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Hey, I have a question. I can't put my arms around this one issue. You know, with all the different groups that are out there that set up trail cameras, why do you suppose that the trail cameras have not caught anything?
Well, I spoke a little earlier about it, and it's pure speculation that these beings, these creatures, whatever you want to call them, observe us in the woods. They observe what we're doing, whether we know they're there or not. And it's just my personal opinion. There may be other reasons for this, and I'm not saying that mine's the right one. I'm just saying that this is what I feel, that they've been there observing us long enough that if they witness a hunter placing a camera on a tree, and that would go into the idea that these things are out there 24 hours a day. They're not just out there at night. They're out there during the daytime. And if they observe a hunter putting a camera on a tree and then observe a deer or a hog or any other manner of animal walk in front of that camera and see that flash, now they're not associating that box or that flash with a photograph that they're getting their picture taken. They're just associating that thing that it flashed. And a few days later, they observe the same hunter come back with a gun, and he kills that hog or that deer in the same location.
Right.
And there's a muzzle flash that comes off that gun. Well, they're not associating that with a gun or a hunter per se, but that flash.
Right.
They may associate that flash as being something bad. That deer and that hog are dead now because that little thing he put on the tree flashed at him, and then this stick that this guy carried flashed at him, and now it's dead. And then they also associate maybe with something else that may be pretty scary out in the wild if you live out there exposed as they are, lightning. In this one particular area where our recordings were, there are several trees that you can find in there that are burnt and split, everything else. The lightning strikes, and that's just something that they may associate. That doesn't mean it's a reasonable. I mean, it makes sense to me. It may not make sense to anybody else.
Well, I know that there's trail cameras that they make that have the night vision.
Right.
But my only thing is that, and I don't know how good their scent is, but I always argue with someone that maybe they're picking up the human scent that might be left on that trail camera. So I equated it more in terms of that. And I understand what you're saying, with the first part of what you talked about, and that makes sense too. But I always thought somehow if one could camouflage the camera a little better, instead of just strapping it on a tree. I mean, I don't know how you would go about doing that, maybe make it look like a rock and put it on the ground. I don't know, but sooner or later something would be captured just on the mere accident.
Right. And there is, going to the night vision thing, those cameras that shoot in complete darkness without a flash rely on a infrared system. And we don't know anything about their visual acuity. If their visual acuity allows them to see infrared, and I think there was a couple of prime examples that they talked about. The hamster was able to see the infrared beam from a pair of night vision goggles, and the video of the cat stepping over the infrared beams that were placed in a hallway. If they have visual acuity enough to see those things, they would maybe avoid them as well. As far as scent cover, I agree 100%. And it's not just the human scent, but those things are made out of plastic, and there's parts and things in there that if you, even as a human, if you get a new one, you know what plastic smells like. Right. You can smell it. And if their olfactory is what I think it is, you're definitely right.
And tell everyone good night. We are almost off the air. We'll see you all
thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
You did awesome.
I thought we did great.
You did so good. I
just
wanted to tell you I cannot wait to have you back on. We're going to have you back on again if that's okay with you. Closer to the conference. And,
sure. Yeah, love to.
Oh wow, it was a great show. How do you think? Did you enjoy yourself?
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, I get to talk about my favorite subject. you know, and I hate to sound this way, but actually get to
remember, you are still being recorded. So
I understand. But being able to expound upon some ideas and some things and some philosophies that I have that I feel are a good way of thinking about things and looking at things, I think are just. It was a wonderful experience, and I can't thank you guys enough for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Mike, for being our guest tonight.
Well, I appreciate you guys. It's a pleasure. It was believe me, the pleasure was all mine. I wish that we didn't run out of time there so quick, but I was trying to answer his question completely and fully. So,
someone wants to know if you're pro-kill or no-kill.
I'm of the arena of no kill. I don't think that we need to have. Unfortunately, I believe the only way that the entire world is going to be 100% convinced is a body laying on a table, but it won't be placed there by me. And it won't be placed there by anybody. I do travel in the woods with a weapon. It's purely for safety sake, because there's more things out there than a Squatch that are going to come after you. There's hogs and every kind of cougar. And if they don't think there are big cats in East Texas, I've got some pictures of some tracks.
There are plenty of them.
There are plenty of big cats out there.
They're in North Alabama.
Oh yeah.
And probably West Tennessee. I've never seen one, but I just feel certain they are.
Well, there's a lot of reasons to carry a weapon. Now, am I going to say that if a Squatch comes after me, which I don't think will ever happen, but if I feel that I'm going to be in a situation, hey, look, I want to come home and see my family. You know, I don't want to be, torn to pieces and left for the coyotes to eat. If I were in a life or death situation, would I shoot? Absolutely, for self-preservation, but only for self-preservation. Am I going to actively go out and hunt one of these things? No, I'm not. Well, I'm glad they enjoyed it. Did we have a big crowd? Did we have a
good crowd?
It was a pretty good crowd. They got up to 30 people. It was slow to go because the chat was slow
at one time
to get up.
Well,
that's a good crowd.
Now that's just in the chat room, right?
Right.
Yes.
That's not.
We won't know for a few minutes until we actually hang up and give it a chance to archive.
Right.
So we know actually how many live listeners we had.
Wow. Well, just let me know.
We will.
We will. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. And anytime, guys, anytime you guys want me on, just all you guys pick up the phone, call, and ask me.
Most definitely.
Thank you
probably
so much.
play some different recordings too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I share them with people because I know they're like me. They love to hear it's so hard to determine with footage and video and pictures, but there's nothing like the sound.
Well, the thing that a lot of researchers, who have poo-pooed the idea of audio recordings being valid or worth anything, you can do just as much analysis, if not more, on an audio recording of a vocalization than you can of a videotape of something. You can do, there's a myriad of, Dr. Robert Benson can tell you, there's thousands of different analyses that can be drawn from a single vocal recording of any animal, not just a Squatch, but, they can determine a lot of things, even gender, from a voice recording or a vocalization recording. So yeah.
Let him know that we support him. That's just awful. Oh, gosh. I got that DM right in the middle of the show.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, guys, I'm going to let you go.
All right.
Mike,
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you again. And
You're welcome.
I'm still waiting to get to go out with y'all.
Hey, when we get like Bruce told me, when we get the free time and can figure out where we're going to go and get all the logistics together and do all that, we'll be more than happy to have you go out there in the field with us and do some things. We got some things that we're working on right now.
I'm sending him down Tennessee on the air. You see how I do that?
Well,
okay.
But yeah, most definitely. And you guys do a great job. It was a great show. Loved being a part of it. And just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully great things will come from it. And there's some truly exciting things on the way, and that's as far as I can take that statement. But just trust me and believe me when I say there are some really, really exciting things that are going to be taking place in the next year in the Bigfoot research world that a lot of people are going to just going to twist their heads, man. It's just be like, wow. It's just that amazing. So I'm looking forward to being a part of it. The like I told you before, the only positive that came out of that Georgia hoax that showed me the world is ready for this to come to light. There was so much media attention placed on that. It just shows me that there are millions of people out there wanting to know, and so or those media outlets would not have gone to the extent that they did. Unfortunately, it was for a hoax, but they went to such great lengths and great extent. It just shows me that the world is ready, and that's a positive. Even out of the mess that was a big plus. So.
Mhm.
All right, guys. You guys take care of yourselves.
All right, we're gonna
good night.
Good night.
Next time, if I'm ever around Athens again, I'll look you up.
Please do. Please do.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right. You guys take care.
Everybody out there that's still listening, we have got a good guest next week too. This guy had a terrifying experience, and when he tells it, oh my gosh, I got my hair was standing up on my arms. He is wonderful. So if you get a chance to listen in next week to Darren Bishop, we want y'all to come on in and listen to him. And we are going to have Mike Hall back. He's awesome. He's a great researcher. He's got some great researching friends. And so we are going to say good night, everyone. Say good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.